Welcome to this segment of Spirit at Work with our guest, David Anthony. And David, I know the last segment you were talking especially about the impact of your parents' murder on your life and your spirituality. And I know you mentioned that being able to forgive. I guess a question I ask, especially as a priest, people might say, well, gee, how did you get to that point? I mean, initially, was your faith such that even shortly after you heard it, well, I can forgive the person? Or did you go through some phases like anger, resentment, hate? Did you then come to forgiveness? Yeah, talk a little bit more about how all that happened for you.
When we found out about it, of course, you're in shock. And you're not really thinking much about anything. And in my case, I never, and my brothers and sisters, as far as I know, never said, let's get together, go find the guy and kill him.
Yeah.
I remember being so very grateful that I did not have to be the judge, the jury, the policeman, the guys that worked at the jail, all of that stuff, anybody. I just thought that would have been an impossible amount of work to survive the loss of your parents on top of it. The entire legal community is telling you the exact opposite of that. This person needs to be punished. It needs to be punished now. And I honestly think that I saw him more as a person than a thug or a murderer or anything. And it finally grew on me. And I probably used Carl more than anything because it's dramatic. But I imagine someday that I'm going to be standing in heaven with God, and He's going to be looking out all over us. And that all of a sudden I'm going to notice that Carl Bayless is standing next to me.
And that was the murderer,
Carl Bayless. Carl Bayless. And I'm going to say, God, it's me, Dave Anthony. He goes, I know. And I'm going to say, you know what this guy next to me did? He goes, oh yeah, Carl Bayless. I know what he did. And, he's sorry about it, and I'm really comfortable with having him here. I love him. I made him. He's my own child. Mm. And I would say, oh, that simply can't work. And God would say, well, I love you too, and I really wish you'd stay. And I would say, I'm sorry, heaven isn't big enough for both of us. And I would walk out of heaven. It's not getting thrown out, this big image of Christ or with the great chasm, all of that. I think people leave heaven. They don't suddenly die and say, oh, wow, I really messed up. I wish I could go to heaven. I think they look at heaven and go, I still don't want all that lovey-dovey stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, I guess just to ask a little further, did it take some time to move to the point where you could say, Carl Bayless, I can pray for him. I hope someday that I'll see him in heaven and we'll both be able to relate. I mean, again, that's so dramatic. You were, 18?
Yeah.
Losing both parents by a vicious murder. Did that take a period of time to come to this?
It did. Probably ambivalence is the big thing. I mean, you're working hard with 5 brothers and sisters and no parents and trying to keep everybody together and not get adopted and all of that stuff. Thankfully, we had an aunt come live with us who took care of us all. And it turned out remarkably well, but you're trying to be a teenager, you're trying to go on dates, you're trying to do all this stuff, go to college, do this. Your brothers and sisters have a lot of needs that you're no good at fulfilling. So I didn't really think all that much about it. But I do remember, it's probably Larry, you invited me to a seminar or a table presentation on the death penalty. And I had no idea what I was talking about. I think I was kind of there as a poster child type thing. Yeah. But it finally made me think about Carl Bayless and what I felt about him. It wasn't too far after, maybe 5 years. And I've been to a forgiveness seminar in Cleveland, which is one of the most amazing things I've ever been to. The author Terry Anderson, I don't know if you know, was held hostage in Lebanon for 5 years. And they also had the young lady who was in Dead Man Walking, which is a weird movie. They've compiled a couple of different crimes in it. But she spoke absolutely gorgeous, wonderfully articulate. And I remember her line. She says, I can't say that I don't feel safer that they're dead, but I don't necessarily believe that they had to be dead for me to survive. And it's just a really intense feeling. Now I'm all over it on its financial and the cost of putting people to death in this country. We've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to kill really very few people. Probably 50 times more than it would have cost to keep them in jail for the rest of their life.
Dave, some might say that you often deal with ultimate spiritual questions. What's the meaning of pain and suffering in the world, or is there life after death? What might you say to a person out there who says, well, Dave, you work in the business which kind of invites the spiritual struggle. I'm a homemaker, I'm a truck driver, I'm a lawyer, or I'm not in that line of work. What might you say to that person about your take on the spirituality of the work that they do, or spirit in the workplace?
Well, even with us, I think that it's us as personally, we need to understand that we're all in this together, and that we win or we lose as a team, and that God can help us form that team, and that the fact that we believe essentially in the same thing, which is we kind of do all this for the greater glory of God and to make a living, and that really kind of directs people. And a housewife, I can't think of a more honorable profession and somebody that's going to create our world more than somebody who's raising children. I think it's just absolutely amazing. And like a truck driver, there's an incredible amount of time for introspection on a truck. Get rid of the headphones every once in a while. Just think about what's going on. I love mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hey, thank you very much for your openness and sharing from your heart, and obviously a depth of spirituality that makes a difference not only in work but in all of our lives, especially where there's hurts and setbacks. Come back for our final segment where Larry and I will talk a little bit about today's session. Welcome back to our closing segment, in which Larry and I just take a moment to reflect on our guest comments today, which was Dave Anthony. And gosh, Larry, the thing that struck me is that whole reality of forgiveness. I guess in 36 years as a priest, I've seen people get petty and hold resentments about small kinds of things. Here, he's talking about a major reality, the murder of his parents, and the ability, not immediately, but over time, and because of his faith, to be able to forgive the person who did that. I hope for everybody out there, and it's a good reminder to me, that that ability to be able to let go. Forgiveness is a gift to the other person, but it's also a gift to yourself, because you're not living with that toxic resentment, with that hostility, with that negativity. And gosh, certainly Dave inspired me, because you can see he has that peace about him. And I think part of that is probably just his ability to reflect and take a deeper look at all of these.
And following up on the question I asked him, some might say that the ultimate spiritual question is there life after death? What's the meaning of pain and suffering? But I once heard it said by Anthony de Mello, a deceased Asian Jesuit priest, that the ultimate spiritual question might really be, who am I? And when Dave started talking about the need for introspection, no matter what you do, and how he even takes advantage of mowing the lawn as a means by which to get in touch with himself, maybe we all need to do that. Maybe we need to be a little more forgiving of ourselves, because we can really beat ourselves up.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and thanks to all of you as we close out this segment. Hope to see you next time.